Welcome to our revision video in preparation for this year's prelim, which will be on section 1 of the paper and Angels in America. Before we begin, let's have a think about the final exam that you will sit in May. The final written exam is 2 hours long and will feature 2 sections. The first section is where you will write about Angels in America. It will last for 1 hour and you should be writing a 20-mark essay. Section 2 is your performance analysis essay, and you have the choice to write about the Glass Menagerie, which I would encourage everyone to do who goes to see it, or Frankenstein, should there be a reason for you not going to see the Glass Menagerie. Again, it should last an hour, and it is a 20-mark essay. However, for the purposes of the prelim, you are only going to be sitting the section 1 essay, so 1 hour long, Angels in America, and worth 20 marks. When you open the paper at section 1, you will be faced with 6 questions. You only have to answer 1 question in total. There will be 2 questions from the perspective as an actor, there will be 2 as a director, and there will be 2 as a designer. You should choose the one that you are most comfortable with and which fits your text most accurately. This is an example of the types of things you might be asked in section 1 of the paper. These are the things that we've studied in class, and should you know all of the information here, you should be able to attack any type of question, even although we don't know which questions will come up, and we also cannot learn or plan for an essay in section 1. As long as you have a brief idea of all of these types of questions and you know your quotes and the key moments, you should be able to attack most questions. Speaking of key moments, now is a good time for us to review those. I've listed each of them here in the video, and I'm going to suggest that you pause at each moment, return to the script and reread that particular scene. The reason that we need to do that is to remind ourselves of the events of the play and to familiarise ourselves with the context in which the quotes that we're later going to choose are seated. So if you'd now like to go to the script and go to Act 1, Scene 4, this is key moment 1. Again, if you could turn to Act 1, Scene 6, this is key moment 2. Please take some time to read that moment. Key moment 3 is Act 1, Scene 8. This is a split stage scene. So remember, if you are writing about this scene, it's best to focus on either Jo and Harper's relationship or Pryor and Lewis's, as opposed to both at the same time, as this overcomplicates matters. But please do read both at this stage. Moment 4 is Act 2, Scene 9. Again, it's a split stage scene, so you want to focus on either relationship. This is more difficult because the dialogue is overlapping, but please take some time to read that scene again now. And moment 5 is the ending, so Act 3, Scene 7. We have sections of this where it's Lewis and Jo, and another where it is Pryor. Now that you've reminded yourself of the key moments, we need to think about quotes. When you're studying, a good place to look for quotes is in the quote analysis booklet. It picks out the most useful and most key quotes for each of the moments, and you should learn, if not all of these, then a large number of them in order that you're well enough equipped to face the exam. For the purposes of this video, I've chosen 2 quotes per moment from the quote analysis booklet. I want to show you that a number of quotes can answer a number of different questions, so that you shouldn't feel too overwhelmed by the sheer volume of quotes that we have available to us. Let's look at a paper and see how this would work. In the 2023 paper, you're asked 2 director questions, one about key moments and the other one about a key message. You're then asked 2 actor questions. One is about character motivation, and another is about different emotions that a character experiences. And finally, you're asked 2 designer questions, one about genre and the other about social and historical background. This is a good place to start, since we know that the genre of Angels in America is all of the social issues. Since it's an issue-based drama, any quotes that you choose for a designer question here would work for either one. For example, if I want to say that the issue of sexuality is communicated with Joe saying, "Gay, I'm not gay," that would work to argue that the genre of the drama is issue-based, and it would also communicate the social and historical background of Joe because he denies his sexuality as a result of the fact that he lives in the 1980s in America and is a Mormon. Traditional, conventional beliefs at that time mean that he is unable to show his true sexuality. So you can see that that one quote would work for both of those essays. If we return again to the actor questions and we use that same quote, "Gay, I'm not gay," this can be used to answer either of those actor questions. For example, it communicates Joe's motivation. He wishes to hide his sexuality in order that he is accepted in the society that he lives in, and that he is adhering to the strong Christian values of not just the society, but of his friends and family around him. This quote also communicates a different emotion that he feels. He feels defiant and offended when he says this to Lewis in the bathroom that day, as he doesn't like that it's just been assumed that he is gay. And again, if we return to the director questions, you can see that that same quote would fit both of these questions. So for example, if we're asked about themes or issues, "Gay, I'm not gay" covers both the theme of sexuality and denial, as Joe is denying his sexuality by saying that. And furthermore, it communicates the message that we should try to be our true selves in order to be happy, because at this point in the play, he is not being his true self and is therefore unhappy. So, although I've just used one quote, you can see how that one quote fits every essay question in last year's paper. And if we were to do the same with the other quotes that I've chosen, you could see that they cross over. So there are ways that you can easily adapt your answer to make sure that you are fitting the correct question. The skill is in making sure that you do that clearly and you use the wording of the question accurately in order to pick up the marks. And we'll look at how to do that later in the video. At this stage, I'd like you to pause the video. I'd like you to choose one of the 6 questions, and I'd like you to choose 5 quotes from the 10 that I offered you previously to answer that question accurately. At this stage, it might be good to have a piece of paper in front of you and for you to write the question down, to highlight the key words, and to write the 5 quotes that you're going to use at the top of that paper. This is also really good practice in the prelim and in the final exam. Other than writing the question out in the prelim, you'll have the ability just to underline or highlight the keywords in the question you've chosen. But before you write anything, the best thing to do is to jot down the 5 quotes that you're going to use, as that almost helps you to plan out the essay from the outset. Now let's have a think about how the essay is structured. Since I've provided you with the 2023 paper, the questions that you will see are phrased in the old way that we are used to before the changes have come into the higher this year. This means that the previous questions would have asked you for 5 points or 5 key moments or 5 quotes. Going forward, and including in your prelim, the question won't specify a number. However, I'm suggesting that you should still aim for 5 points, but be aware that as long as you answer 3 as a minimum, you can still access the top marks. You should start your essay with an introduction that includes information about the play, the playwright, a brief synopsis of the play, and then an introduction of what question you're going to answer, before then focusing on 5 key scenes or moments from the play and giving a Part A and Part B answer for each of those moments. You should finish with a very short conclusion summarising your answer. So now let's break down that Part A and Part B structure. You should start first of all in your Part A answer with a topic sentence which links to the question. You should then describe what happens in the key scene in detail in the lead up to the quote that you have chosen. You must then provide this quote. You should then explain fully how the quote answers the question. So for example, if the question is asking you about theme, you should explain which theme the quote links to and how it does this. You then have to go to your analysis and development part of the point. This is the part that proves that you have good insight and you have a full knowledge and understanding of the text and its wider context. So, what kind of things can you write about in that analysis development mark? There's a list here inside the red box of things that you can call on. These are suggested and you just need to pick the one that best fits your question and one which means that you won't repeat what you've already just said earlier in the Part A answer. So for example, if you are writing a social and historical context essay, there would be no point in writing more about social and historical context here because that doesn't prove further insight. Instead, you should link it perhaps to the themes or character relationships, character development or motivation, for example. Moving on to Part B, this is where we think about from the perspective of an actor, a director or a designer, depending on what the question is asking. You then again include a topic sentence which links to the question. You must then describe fully, using the correct terminology, how you would act that moment and that quote out if you're an actor, or how you would direct the actors at that moment, bearing in mind that it's not just how you would direct acting that you can comment on in a director's question. You could also mention how the director might approach things like lighting, props, sound, costume, etc. And then you have to fully explain how what you've just described answers the question. So again, if the question is asking you about themes and you've said that the theme is sexuality, how might you deliver the quote as an actor to communicate that theme of sexuality? You then need to analyse the audience impact. What does the audience think, feel or understand as a result of watching what you have just said that you will put on stage in terms of the acting, directing and design. To help you to begin to write a practice essay, I'm now going to give you some example points. For ease, I've chosen question number 1, which is a director question, and it asks about theme or issue. Again, for ease, I'm just going to choose one quote from moment 1 to exemplify how to approach this type of essay. The one I've chosen comes from Lewis when he says, "I always get so closeted at these family things." Here is my point 1 Part A answer. A key moment which communicates the theme of sexuality occurs early in the play when we first meet the characters Lewis and Prior. The couple have just attended the funeral of Lewis's grandmother and are sat outside reflecting on the event when Prior passes comment that Lewis didn't seem himself in front of his family, to which Lewis replies, "I always get so closeted at these family things." This communicates the theme of sexuality as Lewis identifies the fact that he does not feel able to be his true self and to be openly gay around his family and is therefore hiding his sexuality. To develop this further, this links to the social and historical context of 1980s America, where in some states it was still illegal to be gay, and across the country there was widespread discrimination against the gay community, largely as a result of the traditional Christian and conservative values. This might indicate just why Lewis finds it so hard to be honest about his sexuality. You will see here that I've circled in green where I've used the wording of the question. These are the two key points in your answer that you must repeat it. In the topic sentence and then again in the E, the explain section. That's really the bit that gets you and secures you that first mark out of the two. The development mark you will see also begins with the words to develop this further. I would encourage you, as I have done all year, to include this in your development mark so that the marker can clearly see it. You're waving the flag for the marker and saying, please give me that second mark, here's my information. And you can see in this example that I've chosen to mention social and historical context, but you can pick from anything from that red box that I previously showed you in the slide. Again, I've chosen the theme of sexuality here, but we know that there are a number of different themes. So if you are choosing this theme essay, try to make sure that every point is on a